Okay, well, I have been very busy weaving, and I am just about now to the point where I'm ready to add the loop so that when my flap is complete, when I sew a button on, my flap will have somehow to connect to that button. So I'm going to show you. It's very easy to add the loop. You're just going to continue your weaving as you've been doing. And what you're going to do is at the midpoint across this row, let me go ahead and just quickly finish getting across this row. And as you can tell, over time my loom has gotten a little bit beat up looking, and that's okay. It still works just great. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to find about the middle of my loom, and I think I'm going to go on this side, and I'm going to pull back up just a loop that I want it to be able to come over the top of my loom so that it can hook to the button on this other side. So that looks about great right there. Then I'm going to just continue weaving until I am finished with this thread, and it looks like that's going to be very, very quickly, and then I will go ahead and change to a new piece of yarn to finish up, and then we'll pull all the pins and we'll take it off the loom and add our button. So we'll just take it through. Looks like one more tiny bit here. And remember, as I showed you before, to finish off that little tail, you sometimes just have to abandon putting the yarn in the needle whatsoever and just weave the needle through and then thread your needle and pull it through. Now by doing that, you can see how I kind of pulled it in a little bit tight on this edge, so I want to make sure that I back that out so that I'm not going to have my weaving pulled in any way. I'm going to go ahead and finish up, I think, with just another piece of this cream colored yarn as I had in the beginning or in the middle, and hopefully it will make a nice little finish. So I'll go ahead and start my next, and remember, I'm just copying what I did for a little bit there, and I'll continue on. So I'm going to finish up weaving to the top. Again, it's going to get difficult the way it did to get clear to the top on the front side of our pouch, and I'll be back with you in just a few seconds. Okay, I think I am on what is going to be my last round of weaving because it's getting extremely tight and difficult to continue to get my needle through there. So I think this is going to be it, and it's really simple to finish off once we get to the end. All we're going to do is pull our yarn through that one last time, and there's no need to beat it down because we're going to actually pull the pins out. And what I do is I actually pull the pins out first. This is the time to bring in the recycling container for the pins and go ahead and pull those out. You're going to pull out the pins that are on the side, and you're going to pull out the pins that are at the bottom, and you're going to pull out the pins that are on the front part of our pouch. And this is the point where I then kind of back comb. I suppose, is that called back beading? Since it's called beading, I kind of go backwards to take the yarn right up to those loops at the top edge, and then I go ahead and I just give that a little trim, and I give it a tiny little spot of glue just to secure it. Looks like I've got a few little pieces here that are hanging out, So I'll go through and trim those off. Might have some others down here too that need, then you can kind of just bend your loom in half a little bit because it's going to be kind of snug, especially if you did your weaving nice and tight, to get it off of there. All right. And now we can see, oh yeah, I like how that comes around, and then my button can go on like so. So now what I need to do is I need to choose a button. And this is a collection of buttons that my mom has saved for me. And I like to use them in a variety of my projects that I work with, and many of them were snipped off of blouses or dresses, some dating back to, I suppose, the late 60s and early 70s when I was a little girl. Some of the outfits I can even remember, so it's kind of a trip down memory lane every time I look through my little collection of buttons. So, but I think this one is going to work really nicely because no planning involved in this, but nice happy accident that it really matches that nice brown with that gold fleck yarn that I'd used earlier. So I'm going to do a little planning here, my loop, and if I put my button in there, it looks like my button's going to need to be just about on the edge of that cream and that mustard color. So I've got a needle over here threaded with the same thread that I used for my warp, and so I'm going to just tie a knot in the end of that, kind of eyeball where center is, and I like to stitch through my yarn or even some of my warp threads so that my knot has something to catch on. And this button has a nice shank, so that will be just extra good for holding our loop down. And so since I'm using a fairly thick thread, I can get by with about 3 or 4 rounds of stitching, and it's usually pretty secure. And once I've got that, then I will tie it off, make a loop, stick my thread through the loop, hold it so I make another loop, stick my needle through that loop, hold it so I have another loop for the 3rd time, and then kind of just hold my finger up against that, pull it tight, and that's going to make my knot. Now if you're really kind of nervous about that coming undone, which it shouldn't, you can go ahead and add a little spot of glue to that also. But here is our finished pouch, and I'm pretty darn happy with the way that came out. Hang on just one second, let me go grab the cell phone that we sized this one up for and show you just how it worked. Okay, here we are back with the cell phone. Let's give it a try. Slips right in, got nice room that it'll fit, and seals right shut. So that's the end of our project. I hope you have enjoyed learning how to make these woven pouches for a little technology device that you might have in your life. And happy weaving!